Hello, my name is Natasha Harris, and I serve as the Assistant Director for Off-Campus Student Services here at UNC Charlotte. I have the pleasure of coming to you today and presenting on off-campus housing safety tips. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. In today's presentation, I will cover for you the Niner Choice program as well as off-campus student services, which are both housed in the Housing and Residence Life Department and cater to off-campus students. Additionally, I will share some off-campus safety tips that students should be mindful of, as well as helpful resources that may come in handy to help promote personal safety for our off-campus students. The Niner Choice program is a safety education initiative designed to help students and parents make informed decisions about off-campus living options. The program began around 2013, and it is a partnership between Housing and Residence Life, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, and UNC Charlotte's Police and Public Safety Department. Complexes that voluntarily choose to join the program will need to meet and adhere to specific safety standards and record keeping and not meet or exceed specific crime and disorder thresholds. Currently, I have listed the 5 properties in the program. That is as of January 15th. And just keep in mind that we do monitor the crime and disorder thresholds regularly, and if incidents occur, which means that properties need to be removed, we do so in a timely fashion. The properties that are within the program include University Walk, University Crossings, The Edge, Aspen Charlotte, and Millennium One. And just note that these properties, if you were to search on the off-campus housing webpage, each of these properties would be listed on that page, as well as information about the different types of apartments they offer and pricing information as well. I think it's important, although we try to do a good job of educating students about their choices and what the Niner Choice program is, I think it's important to also educate and ensure that families and students understand the full scope of the program. In doing so, I think it's important to emphasize what this program is not. And so the program is not a stamp of approval or endorsement from UNC Charlotte or the CMPD. It does not guarantee student safety, and it is not an option for every property. My goal in working so closely and overseeing the Niner Choice program is to ultimately encourage students and families to consider starting with Niner Choice properties, but to do their own research and read reviews, talk to other students who may have lived in these properties previously, as well as take tours of the property in the neighborhoods in which they are in. I think it's also important for students to understand that they are an important component in their own personal safety, and there are things and steps that they must take to ensure that they are keeping themselves and other residents safe as well. We have 4 main goals of the Niner Choice program, and those include that we want to help students and families make informed decisions regarding off-campus living options by providing them with criteria to consider. Additionally, one of the goals is to promote increased security measures in the university area at our off-campus properties. We also aim to increase relationships and communication between off-campus properties and the university, and educate property managers and owners on how they can make their properties safer for students. Some additional things that we do within the program include hosting safety meetings annually, and then also properties must complete yearly assessments which we go through and look through 5% of the property's units, and we look through the files to make sure that they are performing criminal background checks and have a separate drug and crime housing addendum in their lease. Lastly, we do monitor the crime stats, and we provide safety information that these properties can share with their residents and students. The Niner Choice program has two standard levels, the green standard and the gold standard. The green standard indicates that properties must meet the minimum standards for safety and security, and the gold standard indicates that properties exceed these minimum standards that we have in place. And so some of the things that we do check for when we have these property assessments include that windows and doors lock properly, residents have functioning peepholes. We also check for 3-inch screws, which helps to deter break-ins. And if there happens to be sliding glass doors, we ensure that each of these properties have secondary security features. And so these are some of the minimum requirements. For the gold standard, we make sure if properties are completely fenced, that the fences are functioning and working properly. We also will check to see if there are alarm systems within the units. And we also may check to see that they have hard, solid core doors for all of the doors within the units. And so just keep in mind that you can find more information regarding the criteria that we check on our off-campus housing website, which I will provide for you later in this presentation. And another thing to keep in mind is that for the gold standard properties, they only need to meet 5 of the 11 criteria that we have set in place. Off-campus student services is a functioning that we are working to build. This is a fairly new unit within the department, and so we are working hard to make sure that we promote programming options and initiatives that will really meet the needs of our students. And so one of the things that off-campus student services is focused on is providing services and resources to off-campus students and commuter students. Additionally, we aim to educate students about the opportunities and responsibilities associated with living off campus. We help students to be savvy consumers and to successfully transition from life on campus or home to more independent living off campus. I provide outreach to students who are struggling with aspects of living off campus. So if students may have issues with paying rent, I may get them in contact with SAS, in which that is our student assistant and support services. And so they provide one-time emergency loan services to students, or if they're struggling with classes or some sort of personal ailment in their lives, I will also try to get them in contact with our CAPS, which is our counseling services. So if off-campus students do have some aspects they're struggling with and reach out, I do try to get them in contact with on-campus resources that they might not know they have access to. And additionally, we are also in the process of launching exciting initiatives and programming, as I mentioned, that will cater to off-campus students. Our goal is to have an in-person event in the spring, but due to COVID, things may change. So if we do not have an on-campus event, just know that we will also have a virtual event that will feature some off-campus housing properties, as well as some of the resources that we have on campus as well. COVID-19 safety. So I'm sure students and families are exhausted and up to their wits' end with hearing about COVID-19, but I think it's important to also highlight what our off-campus properties are doing and things that students can do to keep themselves safe and their roommates safe. And so just know that off-campus properties, I speak with them regularly. Some of the things they are doing within their complexes. It varies by each complex, but many times they will limit the number of students that may be able to come into the clubhouse or the amenities that they have on campus. Some properties are requiring that students make reservations to use these spaces. They are cleaning regularly within the clubhouses as well as the public spaces, but these are just a few of the things that their properties are doing. If you are interested in an off-campus property, my advice to you would be to reach out to that individual property and ask them what COVID-19 safety protocols they have in place. But to touch on what students can do to keep their own self safe, basically what the CDC recommends: wash and sanitize your hands often, clean and disinfect your room and common areas regularly, wear a mask, avoid large gatherings, and minimize traveling plans. We understand that this can be difficult, but in order to help stop the spread of the virus, these are some things that we do recommend that students do. If you are exposed or contract the virus, please make sure that you isolate and quarantine if you are exposed. At our properties, I do know that they have sent communications to residents, and if residents are exposed, they are expected to report to their properties that they have been exposed or have the virus. So make sure that you are doing that if you live in or choose to live at one of the off-campus properties. And last but not least, we do have testing available on campus at the Student Health Center. I have included the number for the Student Health Center, which is 704-687-7400. So please reach out to them or visit the Student Health website to learn more information about COVID-19 safety and ways to get tested on campus if you do believe you have been exposed to the virus. The next thing I want to touch on is community safety. I know students may have the habit of getting into a community and thinking it's only about them, but there are things you can do to help keep your community safe and to reduce crime in that particular property. And so one of the first things we do recommend is that you do not store spare keys outside of your units. There are different products available for students, whether they're fake rocks or different things of that nature, which you can store these keys in, but we don't recommend it. This makes it easier for assailants to break in and do mischievous things within your unit if you have that easy access spare key outside of your unit. So never store spare keys outside of your unit, as well as never lend your keys to other individuals. I know you may think it's easy to do. You may have a significant other or parents or siblings that you may want to say, hey, come bring something to my apartment, but we don't recommend it because although you may trust them, you're not sure if they're in the right state of mind or if they are capable of doing something that you wouldn't approve of. So never put yourself in that compromising position by lending your keys out. Additionally, ensure that all doors and windows lock inside of your unit and work properly. If you have any issues, please immediately report those issues to your complex's maintenance team. If you do reside in an apartment, if you reside in a home and you have a landlord, just report those issues to the landlord as well. Additionally, make sure that you have window screens in place. It is another deterrent to help reduce crime and break-ins in your house. The next thing we recommend you do is keep your doors and windows locked, even when you are inside the apartment. If you are using the window, that's understandable, but as soon as you're done, we definitely recommend closing that window and locking it. College students are easy targets for assailants. They do know you all have expensive electronics and different things, so it's definitely recommended that you keep your doors and windows locked. We do have students that have been the victims of different things because they haven't kept their doors and windows locked. So we always encourage and stress the importance of doing so, locking your windows and locking your doors. Additionally, make sure to keep your curtains and blinds closed at night and when you're away from the unit. By doing so, it helps to prevent thieves from being able to look in and see the valuables that you may have within your residence. Next, we encourage you to park in well-lit areas when possible. I know this can be difficult, but if you have the opportunity to park where there is a light available, we encourage you to do so. It's easy to park closes, but if you want to make sure that you're staying safe, we recommend that you park in those well-lit areas. Additionally, if you return to your home and you notice suspicious activity or signs of forced entry, most of the properties in the university area have security companies. So if you do choose to live in one of the student housing or complexes close to the university area, report that to your security company or call CMPD at 911. If you are unsure it's safe to do so, please do not enter your unit. I encourage students to do what's necessary to keep themselves safe. So if something looks suspicious, make sure you are doing what's possible and you aren't tackling that issue or problem alone, and that you have someone there to help you to ensure that your house is safe. Additionally, I do have a video I want to show after I talk a little bit more about safety features, but if you have a security door or a secondary door, consider investing in a security bar or some inexpensive secondary security fix. A lot of properties do have Juliet fences or additional security features in place, but they're inexpensive things you can do to also improve your personal safety. Also, don't allow strangers into the building. If you are unsure if someone lives within your unit and you see them running up and ask you to hold the door, please know you're not obligated to do so. If you don't know who that person is, we highly encourage that you don't leave the door open for that person. Another thing you can do, if your housing complex has a gate and the gate has malfunction, report that gate malfunction to your property manager or maintenance staff to ensure that they are aware. And just make sure that you are just doing what you need to do. If you see suspicious activity happening, whether it's near your unit or just in the complex, if you see something that doesn't look right, make sure that you report it. So the first video, these are educational videos that I am choosing to show just to kind of show some inexpensive security features. It will probably last about 3 to 4 minutes. So just watch very quickly these 2 videos of things you can do to help keep your house or apartment safe.
Hey, what is going on YouTube? TR Tech here, and welcome back to my channel. In this short video, I'm going to show you some very, very cool upgrades for me. Alright, the first upgrade I'll be talking about is the steel style defenders. Just like that. These are the better ones. What makes this one different is this one is very, very so it prevents somebody from kicking the door down or just busting through the regular locks. The second upgrade I'm talking about is installing security cameras. As you can see here, this one is pointing to the window, so I can see what's going on at all times. Second security camera setup here on the booster. One better than first. All the security cameras I have set up are actually there's a timer that goes off in a second. So if you ask them to leave, it protects that motion and actually start recording. The whole process is very simple. I just tap on the presence and all you have to do is tap on it to the left. So the camera will also download it to the phone recognition. That means you can check your cameras at any time. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll definitely see you next time.
So that is the first video, and now is the second video, which caters more to students that may live in homes, but I will share this just in case you find some helpful information as well.
not always easy. Crooks are getting clever when it comes to breaking into your home.
But there are ways to prevent that. It's important to keep your family safe so you don't waste your money.
We generated over 6,000 every day lives to make our home safe by compliance. So we have 9 easy ways to secure your home for under $50. Already realize how to home you can shake up your world. Wasn't this one? 2 years ago, my boss kicked in the door. Job is to stop them. The owner is locked, but their character is not ways to secure more than $150. So it's a flip back, but it's not security. So condo, try this door until for $15. You put this on your job on the side, and then you secure the door. You can have a just fix it with a 20-hour deadbolt. This is a general flat latch. Maybe you're sliding glass door, which is a purpose to have to slide. It's a those put that family sliding glass door. So the glass door on that side. We know that other access point, which is a $7 sliding lock. Let's press that in. Emergency cord is a target for any problem with a cooling air. It costs you nothing. Just powers up there. Finally, also has a $200 range limit, which is people in the access $7. As good as if you're warm on either way, Wi-Fi, computer system, or security system with secure doors, you can still get some peace of mind for just a few bucks.
So those are just a few community safety tips. If you do want to make those additions or even have your complex to ensure that you have 3-inch screws, I would just check with your complex's property manager or maintenance staff to see what additions or changes you can make to improve your safety. Here are some additional community safety tips. I know being college students, a lot of times we do have extended breaks, whether those are spring break or the winter break that we have in place. And so here are a few things that you can consider doing to help minimize break-ins for your apartment or your residence while you are away for break. And so the first thing we encourage students to do is consider investing in randomized light timers. This will help to give the impression that someone is in the apartment during these time periods. The next thing that you are encouraged not to do is to leave valuables in the apartment if you'll be away for an extended period of time. If you have someplace, a storage unit or a home where you can take these to, we recommend doing that where someone can monitor them and ensure that they are not in jeopardy of being stolen or being taken from that residence. Additionally, do not have packages shipped to your home or apartment while you're away. Disconnect power cords and electrical appliances that will not be in use while you're away. A lot of times this can be an easy way for a fire to start, especially if it's an older appliance or something that uses a lot of energy. And lastly, if you have a trusted friend or neighbor nearby, consider asking them to check on your unit while you are away. It may not be giving them a key, but just have them go by to make sure things look intact. It doesn't look as if your property has been broken into and things are safe. Last but not least, it's not included on this list, but also make sure that you invest in a good renter's insurance in the likelihood that something may happen Most properties do require that you have this renter's insurance in place, but if your property does not, we still encourage residents to do that and invest in renter's insurance, which is typically very inexpensive. Personal safety. There are a lot of things that we have in our lives that pose us distractions and help us to take our sight off of things that we might need to be mindful of. And so these next two slides will kind of talk on some tips that students can do to improve their personal safety. So the first thing we encourage students to do is to remain alert and aware of their surroundings at all times. It is easy to become distracted, especially with electronic devices such as your cell phone. So it's important to pay attention not only when you're driving, but walking to your destinations as well. The next thing we encourage students to do is walk to and from places with a companion. And this may be difficult sometimes, and if you do not have access to that person, we just encourage you to use the Live Safe app, which also works to communicate with your friends who may be on campus, but also it works to communicate with our police and public safety department as well. And so that Live Safe app will show where your location is and confirm that you got to and from your destination safely. Again, we always encourage students to lock their doors, whether it's their vehicle doors or their residence doors. Make sure you lock those doors and windows to ensure that you are not making it easy for someone to enter your residence without your approval. And also lock those doors if you are living with roommates that you may not know. The next thing we encourage students to do is to be mindful you may be approached by an assailant, but try to cooperate with them as best as possible. Do not panic or try your best not to panic or become defensive, and don't fight them because this will likely increase everyone's personal risk. We do encourage students to pay attention to what the assailant is wearing. Also height, facial features, distinct tattoos, and different things like that. So be cooperative, but also be mindful of these different things that may help to identify who your assailant is. Make sure that you keep a list of your valuable items as well as serial numbers. If you have a cloud account that you can store this information in, please do so. The CMPD will ask if there is a theft or some type of break-in. CMPD will ask for this information, so make sure that you are being mindful of it and keeping track of it. Additionally, make sure that you never share your personal information or building codes with someone unless you are familiar or you trust the site or source that you are on. A lot of times fake sites are created and hackers are getting very creative with ways that they can steal your personal information. So just make sure that if you are sharing things over the internet or the phone, that you can confirm that it is a trustworthy source. Additionally, never share building codes or passwords for your building or gate with other individuals. Have them call you to come let them in to that resident space. And just make sure that you are being mindful when you are interested in a residence, or if you are looking to move off campus, just make sure that you do your research, as I mentioned earlier, and just be mindful of the community safety features. Make sure lighting is acceptable. If they do have a gate, just make sure it's functioning and working properly. A lot of complexes will indicate that they have video surveillance, so that's another thing to be mindful of. If you do tour the apartment, ask about the lock features. Are there deadbolts? Are there key-in numbers that you would key in for the code? Just make sure that you are keeping safety features in mind so that you can also enjoy where you live, but also know it's a safe option for you. Some additional safety information that I have for you regarding your personal safety is pertaining to sexual assault prevention. And so our CMPD does a very good job of providing sexual assault tips on our UNC Charlotte Police and Public Safety website. And so the first tip that they recommend to students is to avoid hazardous situations. And so by taking such steps, such as traveling with a companion or avoiding an excess amount of drugs and alcohol, you can significantly reduce your risk of being victimized. The next recommendation that PPS has is that you communicate your limits clearly. If someone starts to offend you or cross a line that you have set for yourself, tell them firmly and early. Polite approaches may be misunderstood or ignored. If that person does not respect your wishes, remember that you can remove yourself from that situation. Any miscommunication can be explained later. The next step that they have is to be assertive, be direct and firm with someone who is sexually pressuring you. Tell an acquaintance or your partner what you want or don't want and stick with your decision. Regardless, there must always be active consent on both sides. The next step is trust your instincts. If you feel you are being pressured into unwanted sex, you probably are. If you feel uncomfortable or threatened around an acquaintance or partner, get out of that situation immediately. If you misread someone's signals, you can always explain yourself later. And last but not least, respond physically when necessary. Many times, situations in which alcohol or controlled substances are involved, clear communication may sometimes get misconstrued or not be effective. If someone is assaulting you and not responding to your objections, you have the right to respond physically or to physically defend yourself if you feel you can do so. If possible, push the person away and create as much noise and distraction as possible, such as screaming or saying no, and say that you consider what that person to be doing as assault or rape. Remember that without clear consent from both parties, it's still sexual assault, and no one deserves to be raped or assaulted. We understand that in all cases, the victim is not to blame for these actions. And so if you do find yourself in a situation such as this and you need some additional assistance, we do have CAP services available to students. Just reach out to them or someone else that you trust to help you to cope with the incident that you may have been involved in. And CAPS, which is our Counseling and Psychological Services Department, does offering counseling for students and additional service that they can take advantage of. So please be mindful of that if you do find yourself in a situation such as this. The next thing I want to touch base on is vehicle safety. I've said it several times during this presentation, and I will say it several times more. Always lock your doors and roll up your windows. This is a great way for people to get into your vehicle, whether you are in it or not. So just make sure that you are mindful of that and locking your doors and rolling up your windows. Additionally, don't leave spare keys, weapons, or valuables in your vehicle unattended. It's easy, you think your car is a safe place, but it takes seconds to break that window and rummage through things in your vehicle. So just make sure that you are not leaving valuables such as keys, weapons, or purses. Even if they're empty bags, thieves don't know that they are empty bags. So this can be something that they target, don't get, and now you still have property damage. So make sure you are not leaving items that may be considered valuable unattended and in plain access in your vehicle. If you can, put these items in the glove compartment if you have to run in somewhere, or the trunk of your car. Next, don't leave your car unattended and running. This is actually a crime that most people aren't aware of. If you, let's say you're warming your car up in the morning, it's an old-fashioned car and you're warming your car up and you get your car stolen, it's not necessarily a crime, but you will receive a citation for doing so. So never leave your car unattended and running. Additionally, I mentioned earlier to make sure, if whenever possible, you park in well-lit areas. This will help to minimize your risk of being attacked, and will help you to be a little bit more vigilant about your surroundings and who is around you. Be sure to look around and inside your vehicle prior to proceeding to your next destination. Additionally, always approach your vehicle with your keys ready to go. And if you do see something that is lying by your vehicle, make sure you don't pick it up. A lot of times this can be a ploy to distract you and to possibly rob you or to get you somewhere that you should not be. So just make sure you're vigilant, approach your car with your keys ready, and make sure that if you are seeing something suspicious, if you are inside of your complex, make sure you report that as well. Lastly, if you are utilizing the light rail system, which is on campus, remember to be mindful of your surroundings and report suspicious activity to UNC Charlotte's Police and Public Safety Department. A lot of times we might use our headphones, we might be on our phones looking at social media accounts, but just make sure that you're paying attention every so often at least to your surroundings and making sure that no one is approaching you that should not be approaching you. Fire safety. A lot of times we think it's something that can't happen to us, but fires are actually more common than you may not think, just based off of simple things that we might not remember to do. So prior to moving in, one of the great things that we recommend is to confirm that your unit's smoke detectors work properly. Smoke detectors should never be removed, and it's recommended that you replace the batteries at least every 6 months. This is the first line of defense to ensuring that if a fire does occur within your unit, you are notified and you have enough time to get out of that unit, and you can get to your destination outside safely. So please just make sure you are mindful of your smoke detectors. If they are missing within your unit or don't seem to be working, make sure that you notify maintenance staff or your landlord immediately. The next thing that we encourage students to do is to not tamper with the sprinkler system or fire equipment provided by your community. I have worked in residence life for about 10 years, and I can say that students have hung items from sprinklers before, or been playing in their room and hit the sprinkler, just not thinking. And so if you do alter that sprinkler system, just know it's very fragile, and the second that the piece on it that's preventing the water from coming out breaks, just know that there are gallons of water that will rush into your unit. So just make sure that you are being mindful of that sprinkler system. If you are playing within your unit, make sure you are doing so away from that system. And then with the fire equipment such as fire extinguishers, make sure that you are not using them at your leisure and getting them and playing with them. Those are provided to keep you safe, and I do believe it could be considered a federal offense if you do monitor with or manipulate or bother the fire equipment provided by your community. It's costly, it's unnecessary, so make sure you are only accessing it if it is necessary and there's a fire within your unit. Next, never leave food cooking unattended. This is a quick way you may start cooking something and doze off. Just make sure you are staying alert and attentive and monitoring the food that you are cooking to the best of your ability. And additionally, never smoke inside your unit. Properties will include in their leases that you should not smoke inside of them, so please do not do so. A lot of properties may have designated smoking areas, so if they do, I would ensure or recommend that you utilize those smoking areas. Avoid using extension cords. Instead, use surge protectors to ensure electrical outlets are not overloaded. These are fairly inexpensive and can be purchased on Amazon or at your local Walmart hardware store. So just invest in surge protectors because they do help to keep your electrical outlets from being overloaded and safe. If possible, invest in a multi-purpose fire extinguisher. These again are fairly inexpensive and can be purchased online or at a local store such as Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, additional stores as well. So I think some of the cheapest ones I've seen range from probably $15 to $20, but it's nice to have on hand, especially in your kitchen area, because cooking are where a lot of the common fires are started. And lastly, make sure that you have an evacuation plan in place in event of a fire. If you are familiar with your other residents, let's say you live in a student housing complex and you're placed with other people, I'd recommend speaking with them, have an evacuation plan in place. That way, if a fire does occur in the unit, you all can meet up somewhere and ensure that everyone that lives within that unit is safe. The last thing I want to share with you are some helpful resources that are available to you. The first, I've included a very quick screenshot of the new mycmpd app, which allows for students to have access to not necessarily information that's happening in their area, whether it's accidents or other things that may be occurring. You can provide safety information as well as it's a virtual police officer station. It provides up-to-date and accurate information right at your fingertips. So if you have a smartphone and you can download the mycmpd app, we encourage you to do so. Additionally, I have a picture of the Live Safe app that's available on UNC Charlotte's campus. And so in this app, you can report tips. There are emergency options where you can make calls or communicate with police and public safety. It allows you to see UNC Charlotte resources. And there's another feature called Stay Safe, which also allows students, like I mentioned, communicate with others who might be on campus to monitor them walking to and from their destinations. Additionally, we have Crime Stoppers, which is not an app, but more so of a website and telephone number that students can use to report anonymous tips. It helps to keep your community safe. And as I mentioned, you can submit these tips online or via phone. And last but not least, I like to mention blue light phones. These are not available at every property, but a lot of properties in the university area do have these blue light phones, and so they communicate directly with CMPD. So if you have an emergency and you happen to be near one, you can just press the button to activate the blue light phone, and then you can tell what your emergency is. So these are a few helpful resources that students may not know are available that they have access to on and off campus. And last but not least, here is our contact information. If you need to reach us after this session, we are located in the Housing and Residence Life office, or I'm located in the Housing and Residence Life office. I do have a hybrid schedule where I work some days in the office and some days out of the office. So if you need to get in contact with me, you can feel free to email the off-campus student services mailbox at uncharlotte.edu. Additionally, you can reach us by phone at 704-687-7501. This is the main Housing and Residence Life number, but if you ask to speak to Natasha Harris, that is me, and I can help with your off-campus student questions or needs. And last but not least, our website is offcampushousing.uncc.edu. You can create profiles and also look at what the Niner Choice program is, resources on campus. We also have a feature where you can create roommate profiles as well. And so all of these are available on the off-campus housing website, and there is our web address right there. I thank you for being a part of this presentation. If you have any more questions or concerns, please just feel free to reach out to me. And I hope you have enjoyed this presentation today. Have a great day.